On the day of our wedding anniversary, my husband raised a glass of champagne, his lips curled in the smirk I had grown to despise. Around us, laughter, clinking glasses, and soft music filled the private dining hall he had reserved for our families and closest friends. Everyone thought this evening was meant to celebrate 10 years of marriage, a decade of love, sacrifice, and unity. But instead of a toast, instead of words of love, he slipped a cream-colored envelope onto my plate. The room fell silent as I opened it. Inside, cold and cruel, were divorce papers. "Happy anniversary, Evelyn," he said, laughing as if he had just pulled the cleverest joke in history. His friends joined in, snickering, muttering things like "finally" and "took him long enough." My face burned. My heart pounded in my chest. I wanted to scream, to throw the papers in his smug face. But I didn't. Instead, I sat there, hands trembling, and let the humiliation wash over me. Because in that moment, though no one knew it, I was already prepared. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel and leave your comments. My name is Evelyn Brooks, and I had turned 30 just weeks before that night. For a decade, I had been the perfect wife. The one who smiled at dinner parties, who handled the household, who stood quietly in the shadow of her successful husband, Daniel Brooks. Daniel was everything people admired on the surface: tall, handsome, wealthy, and charismatic. A rising star in corporate law, the kind of man who charmed every boardroom and dazzled every social event. To the world, he was the dream husband, but behind closed doors, Daniel was something else: arrogant, controlling, cruel in ways that left no bruises but carved invisible scars. He mocked my career ambitions, insisting that a wife's place is at home. When I tried to start a small interior design business, he cut me off, saying it was a waste of money. When I spoke up at parties, he would grip my wrist under the table, reminding me to let the men talk. For years I endured, not because I was weak, but because I was planning. What Daniel didn't know was that while he was building his empire, I was quietly building mine every morning. While Daniel left for the office, I spent hours reading, researching, and studying online. I finished certifications in finance, interior design, and digital marketing. I started freelancing under a pseudonym, then launched my own consulting firm quietly, registered in another state under a friend's name. Bit by bit, client by client, my business grew. Daniel thought I was just decorating for fun when he saw me sketching late into the night. But those sketches turned into contracts, projects, and eventually entire properties designed under my supervision. By the time I was 29, my net worth had quietly surpassed his, and I never told him. When Daniel handed me those divorce papers, everyone thought I was the defeated wife, the woman blindsided, broken, abandoned on her anniversary. His mother whispered, "Poor Evelyn," while his friends chuckled over champagne. Daniel leaned in, his voice low so only I could hear. "You'll walk away with nothing. That's what you get for wasting 10 years of my life." I looked at him, forcing a small smile. "If that's what you believe, then I guess we'll see." The seed of doubt flickered in his eyes for just a second, but he brushed it off, laughing louder, raising his glass as if he had won. The weeks that followed were brutal on the surface. Daniel kicked me out of our home, moving his mistress in within days. Friends avoided me, unwilling to stand against him. His lawyers sent threatening letters demanding I sign and disappear. But beneath the surface, I was calm, focused, patient. I gathered documents, contracts, financial records, everything that proved not only his infidelity, but also how I had supported him financially in ways he didn't even realize. What Daniel didn't know was that half the properties he flaunted at parties were designed by me. That the art collections he bragged about purchasing were sourced and valued through my networks. That the money he thought was ours was, in many cases, mine, and I had every receipt, every contract, every signature. My lawyer, Grace Donovan, was a woman I trusted with my life. sharp, fearless, and relentless in the courtroom. When I handed her the neatly organized folders, she raised an eyebrow. "Evelyn," she said slowly, "do you realize what this means?" I nodded. "It means Daniel thinks he's divorcing a helpless wife. But what he's actually divorcing is someone wealthier than him," Grace smiled. "This is going to be fun." As the court date drew closer, Daniel became more arrogant. He sent smug messages like, "Enjoy your little apartment. It's all you'll have soon. Don't embarrass yourself in court. Just sign and disappear." I never replied. Instead, I focused on preparation, on rehearsing my testimony, on making sure every detail was flawless, because I knew, the moment the judge read out the truth, Daniel's world would collapse. The night before the court hearing, I stood by the window of my apartment, looking out at the city lights. For the first time in years, I felt powerful. Not because of what I was about to win, but because of what I had already become. Daniel thought tomorrow would be his victory lap. He thought the courtroom would be his stage, his final act of humiliation against me. But what he didn't know was that tomorrow would mark the end of his empire and the beginning of mine. I closed the curtains, whispered to myself, "Happy anniversary, Daniel," and went to sleep with a smile. The courthouse smelled faintly of polished wood and paper, sterile, cold and heavy with the weight of broken marriages. Couples passed by in silence, some avoiding eye contact, others whispering bitter words under their breath. But I wasn't just another soon-to-be divorcee walking these halls. Today, I was Evelyn Brooks, the woman Daniel thought he could destroy. I stepped inside the courtroom, dressed in a tailored navy suit. My hair was pulled into a sleek bun, my heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Confidence radiated from every step, though inside my pulse beat fast. Daniel was already there, lounging in his chair as if the courtroom was his kingdom. His mistress sat behind him, dressed to impress, smirking at me with the same arrogance that clung to him like a second skin. When Daniel saw me, he laughed. "Nice outfit, Evelyn." "Trying to look important?" I said nothing. I didn't need to. The judge entered, a stern woman with sharp eyes. Everyone rose, then sat again as she adjusted her glasses. Case number 4827, Daniel Brooks versus Evelyn Brooks. Daniel's lawyer, a tall man in an expensive suit, stood with a smirk. "Your Honor, this case is simple. My client is seeking a divorce. Mrs. Brooks has no career, no assets of her own, and no financial contributions to this marriage. She is entitled to nothing but a modest settlement." I watched Daniel lean back, smug and certain, his arm resting lazily on the chair. That was when my lawyer, Grace, stood. "Your Honor," she began, her voice calm but cutting. "The narrative Mr. Brooks wishes to present is not only false, it is deliberately misleading. Mrs. Brooks has in fact built her own career. She possesses substantial assets, far exceeding even Mr. Brooks's. Today, we will prove that not only is she financially independent, but her net worth surpasses that of her husband." The courtroom rippled with whispers. Daniel frowned, glancing at his lawyer. "What the hell is she talking about?" he muttered. I sat still, my expression unreadable. Grace laid out file after file, contract after contract. Photos of properties I had designed. Bank records from accounts Daniel never knew existed. A company registration with my pseudonym and its valuation reports. Daniel's smug expression crumbled piece by piece. He leaned forward, whispering urgently to his lawyer. The mistress shifted uncomfortably, her smirk gone. The judge examined the documents carefully. "So, Mrs. Brooks," she said, looking over her glasses, "you are confirming that these assets belong to you personally, that you were the primary force behind their acquisition and growth?" "Yes, Your Honor," I said clearly, my voice steady. "For years, while my husband belittled me, I was building my own life, my own wealth, my own freedom." Gasps spread through the courtroom. Daniel slammed his hand on the table. "She's lying. She was a housewife. She can't even balance a checkbook." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Brooks, calm yourself. The evidence speaks otherwise." Then came the moment Grace had been waiting for. Your Honor, she said smoothly, we would also like to submit evidence that Mr. Brooks not only had multiple affairs during the marriage, but also used marital funds to finance them. The room went silent. Photos, receipts, hotel bookings, even a few careless text messages Daniel had sent to his mistress, bragging about how Evelyn would be left with nothing. The mistress shifted in her seat, eyes wide. Then suddenly she blurted out, "It's true. He promised he'd divorce her and give me everything. He said she was worthless." Daniel spun around, hissing at her, "Shut up!" But the damage was done. The judge's eyes hardened. After hours of arguments and evidence, the courtroom grew still as the judge prepared to deliver her decision. "Mr. Brooks," she said firmly, "it is clear that you not only underestimated your wife, but also attempted to humiliate her in the most public way possible. The evidence shows Mrs. Brooks has significant personal wealth and was instrumental in this marriage's financial growth. She is entitled to retain all her assets. Furthermore, due to your misuse of marital funds and proven infidelity, you are ordered to pay substantial restitution." Daniel's face turned ghostly white. His lawyer rubbed his temples in defeat. The mistress buried her face in her hands. "And finally," the judge continued, "this court acknowledges Mrs. Brooks not as a dependent spouse, but as an independent and accomplished individual." Case closed. The gavel struck. Daniel stormed out of the courtroom, his pride shattered, his reputation ruined. His mistress trailed after him, no longer smirking, her eyes filled with regret. I walked out slowly, each step echoing like a victory drum. Reporters swarmed, snapping photos, shouting questions. But I said nothing, because silence, I realized, was the sweetest revenge of all. Weeks later, headlines splashed across newspapers and online blogs. The divorce that backfired, husband's humiliation in court. Evelyn Brooks, the woman who outsmarted her husband. I received messages from women I had never met, thanking me for showing them that strength didn't always roar. It could also plan, wait, and strike when the time was right. Daniel, once the golden boy of his firm, was forced to resign after the scandal. His empire crumbled piece by piece. As for me, I finally moved into a home that was entirely mine, walls decorated with my own designs, rooms filled with peace instead of tension. One evening, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat on the balcony, and watched the sunset. For the first time in 10 years, I breathed freely. He had tried to laugh at me in my downfall. But in the end, the world laughed at him, and that, I thought with a smile, was the best revenge. If you liked my story, please like the video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with as many people as possible. Thanks for watching.